Okay, so good morning to everybody. We are here for the second day of this short virtual mobility focused on rethinking aging in intergenerational and international perspectives, sharing good practices and enhancing the role of culture. So this is part of activity of our Arcus engagement. Arcus is an alliance involving 7 universities, and the Arcus remind us of this shape which links the university from Granada, who is in charge, particularly for this action, 2.8 Seniors University, and then Bergen, and then Lyon, and then Leipzig, and then Graz, and then Padua, and then Vilnius. And here we have our first meeting. It should have been a meeting in person, but we all know about the pandemics. So as I said yesterday, we are playing with imagination and thinking of being particularly in Granada, but also moving between the different universities. So yesterday we focused on, let's call it a small introduction. And then we focused particularly on rethinking aging. And there were a presentation by Diego Romaioli and myself, followed by a thorough presentation by our colleagues in Granada, Maria Carmen Garcia Guernica and Blanca Delgado. And then after a break, we had a presentation by Christine Benischke, I apologize for pronunciation, from Graz, who presented interesting activities present in Graz, as well as before our colleague in Granada, particularly this Vita Activa. And then Professor Enzo Pace from the University of Padua presented this Progetto Formazione Continua, lifelong learning project, which is a twin activity with the University of Padua, an independent foundation very much intertwined with the university itself. We then had a moderated discussion in rooms, in break rooms, and then we had a general discussion. Today, we move to the second part, focusing more on culture and psychological and digital gaps. So the theme is breaking, or we would also happy probably with softening, but we would like to break intergenerational barriers, challenging cultural and digital gaps. So we warmly welcome our speaker. First, Prof. Rudolf, and I again apologize for my pronunciation, von Gaertringen from Leipzig, or Leipzig University, will speak about the Epitaph project, a very interesting project who won a very important award, but I will not spoil this presentation. I leave our guest to speak. After that, we will split in these breakup rooms with some short-term moderate discussion, and then we will come back to the main room. And we will have a presentation by José Antonio Martínez Aroza from Granada, again apologizing, who will present a very challenging visit to Alhambra. As I say, imagination, we would like to be there. From the point of view of a mathematician. Again, we will have some moderate discussion in break rooms, and we will come back for the presentation by Erika Borella from the University of Padua. As I said, she's a general psychologist, very much focused on aging. She is the dean of a master course on aging, and also she's a very prominent figure in SIPI, CP, the Italian Society on the Psychology of Aging, Società Italiana di Psicologia dell'Invecchiamento. And she will speak about cognitive changes in aging, and will, in particular, close her presentation with some reflection on the digital divide. Again, we will split in small groups, and we will come back to the general, to the main room for a general discussion. I think I have nothing to add. Thank you very much again, and our warm welcome to Professor Hiller von Gaertringen.
Gaertringen, yes. It's a rather complicated name. Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I will try to share my screen. I hope that works. Okay. Good. Can everybody see it? Is it? Right. I will speak about a project that has kept us busy for about 15 years, and from 2002 to 2017. And Leipzig, as you know, is in East Germany, and it has been subject to some really dramatic, transformative processes, and we were in the middle of it, if you like. So here you see one of the objects, and I'll get into it. Last year, which was, of course, a very thrilling experience, we were part of the Europa Nostra Awards, awarded by the European Commission. And here you see the Iron Bridge in Shropshire in England, which was one of the other award laureates. Here you have Rubens' garden screen in Antwerp, which was also awarded the prize. And here you have Saluto all'Italia, the Basilica of Santa Maria Colle Maggio in L'Aquila, which was, of course, as you know, severely damaged by an earthquake some, I think in 2016. I was actually in Umbria at the time. And we were one of them, so one of the other awards. My subtitle is Phoenix Risen from the Ashes, and it was really, when we started, something like a pile of rubble. This is what it looks like today, a very modern building, which of course recalls the past, as you will see in more detail in the next minutes. And this is a view of the finished room, which is a very stirring experience between historic objects, which are in some cases more than 500 years old, and a building that was completed in our day, which of course recalls a Gothic building that was destroyed, as we will see. Very briefly, run through the building history of the site. What we have today is the 5th facade since 1830. So it has been a really accelerated pace of renewing the aspect of the site. Here you have, I hope you can see my little arrow. This is the area of the historic Dominican monastery in Leipzig, in the southeast corner of the medieval walls. Here you have the historic Dominican church called Paulinerkirche. It was dedicated to St. Paul. And here you have the convent buildings with various cloisters. And in this area, the library that was also open to the public. Here you have a Renaissance garden and other buildings. And all this was founded as a monastery in about 1230, and then secularized during the Reformation and bequeathed to the university in 1543. So this was what it looked like in the 16th century. Here you have the church and the monastic buildings here. This is a fortification that still exists today. This is what it looked like in 1830, roughly. The church had a very improvised Eastern facade, if you would call it that. And to the south of it, you have the dormitorium, which was torn down in those years to make room for a new university campus. This is a building that replaced it. The church had a new facade at this point, and this was planned by a local architect called Gaertringen and assisted by Schinkel, a famous architect from Prussia. So this is around 1830 to 1890. A few decades later, this is what it looked like. The historicist campus, very stylish. The building from the 1830s is in fact still in this building, but was remodeled dramatically. Then the war came, the buildings survived pretty much intact, and also the church, but it was the communist government that decided to build a new campus and tear everything down. So on 30th of May, 1968, the church was exploded, as you can see. There were large protests. Many people disliked this decision. It was, of course, in breach of various laws of the GDR, protection of monuments, the protection of graves and stuff like that. But they were not deterred, and so the building went down. In a few days before this dramatic event, it was possible to extract works of art, as we will see. That is what we still have today. This is what it was replaced with, this fantastic 1970s building in its aspect after reunification. There is this large bronze relief that highlights the achievements of socialist society under the guidance of Karl Marx, of course. And this was already an artistic performance to remember the church, which had stood exactly in this very spot. This ideological piece of work of art was, of course, a provocation for everyone who was close to Christianity and its merits. So this is what it looked like, what it looks like now. And as you can see, this building recalls a classicist main building called Augusteum, and this, of course, recalls the facade of the church. And there have been very animated discussions of how to remember the buildings that were lost in 1968. The works of art were extracted in a very improvised manner, and they were shoved into a basement of the local museum and the Reichsgerichts building. It was not, as we would imagine, works of art to be transported and stored, but there you are. We are happy that the objects still exist. There were, of course, elevated levels of humidity. When I first saw them in 2002, they were reaching 70–80%, which is not exactly how you keep that sort of thing. And we don't know anything about this previous situation in the 1970s. These are photographs from a diploma thesis by two students who were one of the few people who were even admitted to this storage area. There's very little other record of it. In this photograph, you can see objects from about 5 epitaphs, which were all, as you can see, stacked on one another. There's elements from wood with polychromy and elements from stone. And there were even objects from metal, which are not on this photograph. This is how I found them in 2002 in a storage area owned by the church. Was hoping to help the university maintain its works of art, but there were no perspectives of how to actually restore them and mount them until that time. Here you can see the condition of the wooden objects with polychromy. The paint was flaking, the gildings were really extremely dirty with fungus and mold, all sorts of corrosion. It was some of the restorations can actually be called miracle healings because it was really, it seemed to be beyond repair. I personally have a conservation experience, and I've also spent much time in Italy for this. So my experience came in really handy. Here you have one of the stone objects, which is fragmented, as you can see, and some of the objects were broken because they were stored in a insufficient manner. So it was really, it needed some imagination to understand what could potentially become of it. We established a collaboration with the Art Academy in Dresden, Hochschule für Bildende Künste, which has one of the two most historic and prestigious conservation training programs. And they sent us one of their best students, Johannes Schäfer, who started mapping the objects. There were, of course, no inventory of all the things that had survived. The survival rate is surprisingly large, about 70%. And you can also see, of course, the severe damages to the polychromy that is charted on the right. This is our new storage area in the city of Leipzig. We had the support by the chancellor at the time, which was very helpful. And so we could start programming the conservation. And here you see some of my collaborators at work. Sibylle Wolf is our house restorer. Claudia Nikolaisen-Luckenbach is also working part-time for us, and we have also assistants from all over Europe. This young lady comes from Vilnius in eastern, in the Baltic Sea. We had a Dutch architect from Antwerp who had won the architectural competition, and he had some really imaginative ideas of how to present works of art, but I'm quite happy to say that not all of it actually happened. These objects would have been far too high for anyone to see the inscription. An epitaph is a kind of funerary monument that centers around the inscription. In antiquity and in the Renaissance, sometimes objects were just the inscription without any images. In the Baroque, we had very elaborate works of art with sometimes interesting iconography. So you should actually be able to see them close up. This is another project that he had to the right a few months later, which we didn't like either. We tried to emulate the historic situation with these sort of inserted walls, which were hung very densely at the time of the sort of early 18th century onwards. And that was the situation that even survived until 1968. So we started developing our own ideas, and of course, it was clear that we needed a circulation between the central and the lateral naves. So we devised these sort of hanging panels on which to mount the objects, and these corresponded pretty closely to the historic situation as we know it from photographs of 1968. Preventive conservation is, of course, an extremely important aspect of any presentation nowadays. And we wanted museum climate, actually, and this was by the decision of the Free State in Saxony. It was only created in the eastern part of the building, which corresponded to the choir. And there is a movable transparent door made from acrylics that separates the part that is reserved for the presentation of the works of art and the high altar, the sanctuary, if you like, and the university hall. It's a multifunctional building serving as university hall, as church, and as concert hall. Here we have no climate control, and when the wall opens, this is something we did not anticipate, and we were also told otherwise. The climate does not persist, so we should actually try and open it as rarely as possible, but there are still far too many occasions when it is opened. It was very complicated and, of course, rather unusual how to, the question of how to mount these objects in a situation that was completely different from the historic one, with these floating panels, as we saw, and a substructure that's made of steel. By some stroke of luck, we met this gentleman on the left, an engineer from Potsdam called Thomas Bolze, who had actually done work of a similar kind, and he devised these metal substructures that you can see here, that are completely invisible, but they hold the historic elements of the object as it survives in place. And it's completely reversible and a very clean and elegant solution. The lines that you see here in green is the historic substance that we still have, and the lines in red are the missing elements. So you can actually see that there is a strong demand for reconstructing certain parts. For this project and this part of our work, we met an artist from Halle called Thomas Loy, whom you see at the left. It's an element of a ray of light that can figure as a guitar, as you can see. And he reconstructed the missing elements in aluminium in a mostly flat fashion, or in a simplified version of what we had before. And these are then anodized. That is an electrolytic, colorful coating of the surfaces, and they were sometimes printed on the basis of historic photographs. So this is what it looks like when it is finished. It was important for us to actually reconstruct the object in its entirety with all its elements, to make it obvious how the object actually was intended to be seen, and still make it legible for the observer in terms of what is original and what is a later addition. So you can see that the wings, for instance, are missing, but the figure at the top is historic from the 18th century. Or here you have an element that has survived, but we couldn't attach it without adding the pendant as it was. So this is based on Italian ideas of conservation. In the 1950s, there was Cesare Brandi and people like that who founded the Istituto Centrale di Restauro in Rome, who tried to emphasize this kind of legibility, if you like, and try to change the historic approaches of where you couldn't actually distinguish what was original and what was the intervention of the restorers. Here you see some of the stone objects as they return to the original site in the summer of 2014. And on the right, you see some of the stone elements being put into place. Here we have the work in full mode. As it progresses, you can see what was necessary to actually reach the height. There's elaborate scaffoldings, and the floor had to be covered, and it's very much like a puzzle of 1,000 pieces. And of course, to have the aluminium elements finished in time for their reassembly was quite a challenge. We had a lot of external help from freelance restorers and moving companies. And one remark perhaps also as to funding, a university is very ill-equipped to handle a project of this size. And of course, there was no money whatsoever. In the end, the budget amounted to about 1.3 million euros, and 800,000 of that was raised by donations and private individuals, foundations all over Germany, and we were extremely grateful for this support that we received. So this is what it looks now. It's a very interesting space. At the center is the medieval altarpiece from the Dominican order created in the 1470s, which was on loan to the Thomaskirche for several decades, and we then asked them to return it, which they did, as you can see. So it is now back in its original location. The epitaphs, mainly to just briefly accentuate that, all date from the times of the university, from 1540 onwards. And at that time, a suburban outside cemetery was created for the normal citizens of Leipzig. And it became a special privilege for the university to bury their members inside the city walls and on the premises of the church and the surrounding churchyard. But not even all of them were buried here. It was a special selection, I think, to largely based on merit. It was the council of the president who decided who was admitted. They were, of course, very interesting individuals, achieved and distinguished scholars. In the 17th century, it became customary to embark on an academic journey all over Europe, 2 or 3 years, mostly Austria, Italy, France, England, the Netherlands. And after 2 or 3 years, they returned to Leipzig and became professors. And so they were extremely well-traveled and had an enormous amount of international experience. And of course, they had seen very interesting works of art, which probably influenced their choices for their monuments as we can still see them here. So this would be another paper, if you like, entering into the different objects and their history, for which we unfortunately don't have time. Work is still progressing, if you like, and there are many fragments still missing, and sometimes you can actually find them. Here you have this is an entombment of Christ and the figure of the risen Christ at the top, and you can see that his head is missing. It's a reconstruction based on a photograph made in aluminium. And after the work was finished, a gentleman from, I think, Flensburg came forward and said, well, I bought the original head in the months after the destruction. It turns out that apparently certain interesting decorative elements were shipped off to the local state-owned antiquity shop and were sold to the public. So he actually bought this head of Christ from alabaster and keeps it in his cupboard. We now have to persuade him to actually give it back or sell it, which has not yet happened. And of course, Corona and its travel limitations was not helpful, but I'm optimistic that we will actually be able to return it to its original position. Regarding the topic of the conference, the University of Leipzig has been very careful and to actually provide the new buildings with all manner of assistance to people with handicaps or any kind of physical limitation. So here you see the main entrance, which has a map of the buildings, and the inscription is also equipped with braille and other guidance systems so that people can find their way around. You have the visitor guidance system on the floor for sticks, which help people to find their way once they're inside the building. The doors open automatically. There are no steps to master, so you can actually move about very freely. This is the entrance to the works of art, and you can see that there is a shifting plane that you can access very easily with a wheelchair, and the elevators have all the right buttons for wheelchair people at the right height and everything. So this is a building that is very accessible for people of all ages and all walks of life, so to speak. Leipzig has a very advanced program for studies for senior citizens as well. There are lecture courses and all sorts of things. So this is an aspect of our work that is very recognized. There are also programs for school children, the Kinderuniversität, and so it's really an experience that is open from the age of 5 to 120, if you like. So I think this is the end of my presentation. Yes, exactly. So I hope I was able to give you a certain insight into what we've done there. There is a lot of other artwork from the Dominican monastery until the 19th century and the 1970s, actually, socialist art as well on the campus. So there's much more than what I've been able to show you here. And we try to actually communicate the history of the site and the history of the university, the history of sciences, all sorts of aspects related to the university. And it's a very thriving place. We've had, I think, 250,000 visitors since it opened in 2017, which is a lot. And of course, many who just roam the campus on their own are not even counted. So art is a very important element for the history of the university, and we are very happy to have the support of the university president for these projects. Well, thank you very much for your attention. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you very much indeed. Extremely interesting. Is there some question, observation, comment? If not immediately, I'd like to share with you and see with you what might be the most prominent question that we could consider in the break rooms for 10 minutes or so, right, Carmen? Something like that. So if I understand well, you now say it's very well. In Leipzig, there are programs for students of different ages, also for senior students. This particular project regards town and university. And if I understand well, you say to know the history of your town and of your university, and to know it at this level, because this is an extremely high level of expertise. Thank you for your presentation. Really, we have from first-hand high-level scholars this presentation. So back to the question, to know the history of your town and university is extremely important and can in itself constitute help to have a bridge and bridges, not only between different universities. You spoke about international movements, which are not new, they were there in the past centuries, but also as regards age. Could this be a question? Would you like perhaps we write it down in a chat and then we try to see, or which other particular questions do you think we could treat in the break room from your own presentation?
Well, I think it's also perhaps the subject matter of the epitaphs that they deal with life and death, so to speak, the general questions of what people have done with their lives, what one does with one's own life, what one wants to be remembered for, what one thinks is important. All this is very much condensed in the object's faith and merit, and there are many aspects which should be interesting for all generations, actually, whether one is a young student or a senior student.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Maria del Carmen, how are we proceeding?
If you want, we can listen now to the Professor Martínez Aroza, and at the end of his presentation, we can have the break-in rooms with the question posed by both speakers.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, perfect. So thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I take my...
I'll liberate the screen.
Thank you very much, Professor Rudolf. It has been amazing to listen to you from first hand this impressive project.
And
now, and now we are going to, in our virtual visit, we are going to visit the Alhambra, and we are going to do that through the vision of a mathematician. He is the Professor José Antonio Martínez Aroza. He is full professor of applied maths in the University of Granada. He teaches on numerical methods and has a large number of research about this topic. And in this occasion, he's going to show us a different point of view of the Alhambra, this so well-known monument, but from this universal dialogue that is the maths dialogue. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning to everybody. Can you hear me? And also, can you see my screen?
Yes,
okay.
Perfectly.
Okay. I would like to begin to thank the Arcos Alliance for allowing me to participate in this initiative. And I hope that my intervention will be interesting for you. I would also like to apologize that I will not be able to attend the entire session. I'm attending a meeting through this morning of the internationalization team of my university, of which I am a member. And for that reason, I will not be able to stay for just the time of my presentation and a little of the subsequent discussion. So I'm going to tell you about a very famous monument, the Alhambra. The Alhambra is a palace, a fortress complex located in Granada, Andalusia. Have any of you already visited the Alhambra? Maybe, probably some of you, many of you, most of you have already been there. For those who have not done yet so, I remind you of what the Cuban poet José Martí said. There are 4 things that each person should do during his life: plant a tree, have a child, write a book, and visit the Alhambra. Sorry for the joke. More than 5 million people visited the monument. Visited the monument in 2019 before the pandemic. This means that there is a constant and intense flow of people entering, circulating, and leaving the palaces, which has caused that the spaces are restricted. The guides cannot give explanation except in certain places, and ensure that it is not possible to fully enjoy the magnitude of what surrounds us. However, in any case, it is a wonderful and unforgettable visit, which remains forever in the visitor's mind. In addition to the standard tour that most tourists do accompanied by a guide, there are many other ways to see and perceive the different aspects of such a complex monument. For example, you can design itineraries through the forest, as well as through the different gardens, or pay attention to the admirable distribution of water through fountains and underground pipes. We can also focus on the palaces, or the Medina, or public spaces, or the military fortress. the variety of different perspectives is enormous, huge. But the Alhambra is so magnificent that one visit is not enough to understand it. The one who speaks to you is a mathematician of the Department of Applied Mathematics of the University of Granada. Please don't go away. So I'm going to show you some of the interesting mathematical aspects of the monument, which are not normally told to visitors. Even most official guides are unaware of them. Please don't worry. I'm not going to bore you with heavy formulas and theorems. From time to time, I accompany a group of visitors to see the Alhambra, sometimes school children, sometimes young university students, sometimes congressmen, sometimes retirees, sometimes a mixture of everything. Everyone enjoys it with the same enthusiasm. It is an ageless visit. I received most of the concept I'm going to tell you from my colleagues, Professor Ceferino Ruiz from the Department of Geometry and Topology, and Professor Rafael Perez from my Department of Applied Mathematics in the University of Granada. The first written reference to the Alhambra dates back to the year 889, so 1,132 years ago, when a small red castle, Calat Alhambra in Arabic, is mentioned. It was renovated and rebuilt in the middle 13th century by Nasrid Emir Mohammed bin Alhmar of the Emirate of Granada, founder of the Nasrid Kingdom, who built his current palace and walls. It was converted into a royal palace by Yusuf I, Sultan of Granada, in 1333. In 1492, the Christians reconquered the city of Granada and the Alhambra, and after this, some places in the Alhambra were partially modified until they formed that we can see today. The Alhambra was declared as a World Heritage Site by the UNESCO in 1984. Therefore, many people have participated in the construction of the Alhambra along 600 years by adding new elements, by modifying some parts, or by removing parts. Along all this time, the builders were always looking for beauty in their work, harmony, elegance, and splendor, as an approach of the beauty of God, and why not, a demonstration of richness and power. Somehow, through their creations, the builders speak to the visitor. And thus, the Alhambra speaks to whoever is willing to listen. How to represent the beauty of the world to get closer to the beauty of God? The different dynasties that ruled the Alhambra found a masterful way of doing it. Play with the proportions and create universal architectural forms through the abstract decoration of walls using basic geometric shapes such as the square and the circle, and reproducing them to infinity through symmetries. This is a way to represent the unity among multiplicity. On this occasion, I'm going to show you some remarkable mathematical aspects that exist in many of the spaces and corners of the Alhambra. So let me start with the first step, the simplest way to achieve the beauty, the proportion. The proportion. One of the main meanings of the word proportion is the correct or most attractive relationship between the sizes of different parts of the same thing. What is the easiest proportion? The easiest proportion, 1 to 1, of course, the square. This is, I do not mean the most beautiful one. No, the easiest, but the easiest. Let us see some examples in the Alhambra. Look at this mosaic one. It's very beautiful, of course. It is located in the rooms around the Comares patio. The whole design contains plenty of square shapes, either in a normal concentric composition, or in an oblique form, or almost everywhere. Let's go to another place. The whole of the Abencerrajes is located in front of the hall of the two sisters, Sala de las Dos Hermanas, on the opposite side of the Lion's Patio. It has a wonderful dome in the shape of a starred octagon that looks like a star. The following inscription is written there: "There is no other help than the help that comes from God, the clement and merciful one." The 16 windows that are where the dawn starts filter the light and illuminate, creating a magic atmosphere. This picture corresponds to the ceiling of the hall of the Abencerrajes. Two simple squares compose the starry octagon. It is the Islamic symbol, the Rob el-Hibs, also known as the Islamic star. It is in the shape of an octagram represented at two overlapping squares. It is the result of the superposition of two concentric squares, one of which has been rotated 45 degrees. Various cultures use it under different names and meanings, but the main purpose of this in the Islamic society is to facilitate the recitation of the Quran. It was in the Kingdom of Granada where this symbol reached its maximum splendor, turning to the decoration of buildings, engraving, jewelry, etc. The Mozarabs and moderators carried the 8-pointed stars throughout the north of the Iberian Peninsula, and the Muslims and Moors spread it throughout the Maghreb and the Middle East. When you visit the Alhambra and you stay under this ceiling, please look around you. You will discover more stars like this, and some other interesting things. Take your time to watch all the details. It is really worth it. This other room is called the Meshwar. It was used for the meetings of the Council of Ministers and also for giving justice. The nearest 4 columns form a square on the floor, and in addition, if we measure vertically up to the beginning of the wooden ceiling, then we get a perfect cube, the proportion 1:1 everywhere. Some specialists say that this cube is a metaphor, an imitation of the Kaaba, which is a holy building in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, the most important place of Islam. The ambassador's room, or throne room, or Comares Hall, inside the Comares Tower, is again a perfect cube, a lot of proportions, 1:1, a lot of perfection. Now, let us leave the square and the cube. What could be the next simplest proportion, different from 1:1? What if I say that the second simplest proportion is the square root of 2? Yes, it doesn't look very beautiful. Okay, I agree. How to get square root of 2 in an easy way? It is very easy. Suppose that you are a builder and you want to get a proportion of square root of 2 with no tools, or at most with the help of very simple tools, as a rule or a string. Take a square sheet and fold it by the diagonal. That's all. This is a standard called the A4. If you put 2 sheets A4 together, you get the A3 size, having again the same proportion of square root of 2 in all their shapes. So to get square root of 2 is very easy. And what about square root of 3? Here you can see some very simple ways to get the square root of consecutive integers. With a rule, trace the diagonal, and with a pair of compasses, bring the diagonal to a horizontal axis to get the next rectangle. Okay, where are square root of 2 in Alhambra? In many places. For example, here. This is a cabinet located just before entering to the ambassador's hall. It is a square, it has a square square ground. If we measure the inner highness from the ground, we will find that it measures exactly square root of 2 times the side of the ground. Also, in the ambassador's hall, there are several proportions of square root of 2 and also square root of 3. On each wall, there are 3 doors. The central one is square root of 2, a little wider, and on both sides are square root of 3. As a curiosity, since we are in the throne room, the ceiling of the ambassador's room is composed by 7 wooden levels as a metaphor of the 7 heavens of the Islamic religion. The first 4 are well visible, while the remaining 3 are little inside the little central dome. In the top of the 7th heaven, the last one, there is a little cup that can be removed from the upper side, and see and listen everything that happens in the room. This is the perfect place for a spy. I have been there. More square root. This is the Comares Tower, built from the pool patio. So the proportion of the tower is again square root of 2. And also in the arcade, another perspective in which one can see up to 3 different proportions, square root of 2, of 3, and of 4. Square root of 4, of course, this is 2. Square root of 4 is 2. Living together all this proportion in a very harmonious way. Whilst inside the tower, the builders played with a combination of square root of 2 and 3. Here in the patio, the combination is with square root of 3 and 4, which are a little bit higher. Up to now, we haven't seen in the Alhambra examples of proportion based on square roots of 1, 2, 3, and 4. But there are other frequent proportions not based on a square root. Here you can see 2 of them in red. The Cordoban proportion and the golden ratio. The hall of the 2 sisters is, as I said, in front of the Abencerrajes hall. The name 2 sisters, the hall of the 2 sisters. Wow, the name may suggest a beautiful story, but no, it's not true. But actually, the 2 sisters are 2 large marble stones on the floor of the hall. The Cordoban proportion is the ratio between the side and the radius of a regular octagon, as can be seen in the ceiling of the room of the 2 sisters. Also, the Cordoban proportion appears in this beautiful window called the Lindaraja viewpoint at the end of the 2 sisters hall. By the way, since we are at this point, I want to tell you something bad, something not perfect. Something bad in the Alhambra. Not everything is perfection. Now we are going to see something worthy to note because it is the unique example in the Alhambra of a mathematical cheat. It is a veritable fraud because it ignores the most elementary rules of the classical geometric construction. Actually, it's the green regular polygon in both sides of the balcony. You can see that it has 9 sides. 9 sides, but it has been demonstrated that this particular polygon of 9 sides cannot be constructed with the only help of a rule and a pair of compasses. Therefore, the artisan who made it had to approximate it by means of nobody knows what kind of technique. In spite of this, okay, you can agree with me that the result is still beautiful, okay? There is still one proportion very famous from ancient times. It is 1 plus square root of 5 over 2, which is better known as the golden ratio, the divine proportion. It has been considered as the most beautiful, the most aesthetic proportion in the world. And it was frequently used from very old time, from Euclid's time, from more than 2,000 years ago. And it can be found in Giza pyramids in Egypt, in Parthenon Temple in Greece, in pictures of Leonardo da Vinci, Diego Velázquez, Salvador Dalí, and even in some compositions of Bach, Mozart, and Beethoven. If you take a sheet of paper with the golden ratio and cut a perfect square, the remaining piece has again the golden ratio. The corresponding diagonals are perpendicular. These are exclusive properties of the golden ratio. A credit card, well, a credit card has the golden ratio, as well as many identity cards and driving licenses. It's beautiful. For this reason, it's beautiful. You can construct in a simple way this spiral that is known as the spiral of Durero. Albert Durero was the most famous painter of the German Renaissance. As the spiral is growing, the ratio between two consecutive pieces of the spiral tends to the golden ratio. The spiral of Durero can modelize very well some shapes in nature, galaxies in your universe, the extractor of some flower seeds, the growth of some plants, even a hurricane or a seashell. And the golden ratio is present in the Alhambra, in many places. For example, here in two of the doors of the room of the two sisters, the golden ratio lives, as you can see, in very beautiful harmony with the square root of 2 and the 1 proportion. The upper part of the Comares Tower that can be seen from the pool patio has again the golden ratio. In another patio, in the patio of the Golden Room, there are also several examples of the divine proportion, and so on. One can find a lot of interesting proportions in the Alhambra. As a curiosity about this facade of this patio, if we split the facade into two halves vertically, we will realize that each door is not situated at the center of its respective half, but about 8 centimeters outwards. This artful trick helps to enhance the feeling of perfection to the human vision, which is conic. The human vision is conic. Just as the column of the temple in Parthenon in Athens are not uniformly spaced, precisely to make the human eye believe they are. It's merely an architectural device to correct perspective flaws of vision. Okay, I will stop talking about proportions. More mathematics. Look at the fountain in the lion's court. 12 lions around it. One can think that the fountain has many symmetries since it is based on a regular polygon of 12 sides. But actually it is not true due to the little fact that all the lions have their tails in the left side. Some authors state that the fountain is inspired in a description from the Bible. It is a reproduction of a fountain that was in the Temple of Solomon, supported by 12 bulls, symbolizing the 12 tribes of Israel. There is a very specific description in the Book of Kings, chapter 1. There appears the first approximation of the number pi that we have a written historic reference. It says that the fountain should have 30 elbows of perimeter and 10 elbows of diameter. So that dimension approximation of the number pi is 3. Certainly, it is not very accurate. Let's now talk about mosaics. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of mosaics in the Alhambra. All of them are beautiful, colorful, and they produce very pleasant and magic sensations. A periodic mosaic is composed by a pattern, a tile, normally a very simple small pattern that is repeated again and again. A mosaic is somehow a representation of Allah, of God, who is one and many, one among many. Let us study for just a minute this simple mosaic. It is like a chessboard. Certainly, it is not very beautiful, okay, I agree, or interesting, but it is suitable for a first study. Suppose that the mosaic is extended with no limitation to the plane. What is the smallest pattern composing this mosaic by repetition? We call it the basic tile. What is the basic tile here? Attention, it is not a single square because there are two different types of square, black and white. Actually, the basic tile is a set of two joined single square, one black and one white. This is the basic tile. It can be repeated in all directions, right, left, up, and down, in such a way that all the mosaic can be built by repeating the basic tile. Now we will look for the geometrical transformations that leave this mosaic unchanged, the same, invariant. There are three kinds of transformations: translations, rotations, and symmetries. Okay, a translation consists of moving the entire mosaic in one direction. For example, if we move the mosaic 2 squares to the right, we get the same. And similarly, when I say 2 squares to the right, I can also say to the left, or upward, or downward, or even 1 square in any oblique direction. All this translation will leave the mosaic intact. Another kind of transformation is the symmetry. A symmetry consists in reflecting the mosaic like in a mirror so that the reflection looks like the original. The line where we place the mirror is called an axis of symmetry. Finally, a rotation consists of fixing a center and rotating the entire mosaic while leaving it unchanged. You can see in the screen some examples of possible rotations, leaving unchanged the mosaic. Okay, look at this beautiful mosaic. It is located in the Alhambra, in the pool patio, just before entering to the boat room. The triangles are slightly curved in a beautiful way. Please note that they are distributed by colors in oblique lines. Can we make translations? Can we make symmetries? Can we make rotation? What is the basic tile? Okay, what can we learn? What can we learn from all of this? In any periodic mosaic, some geometrical transformations are possible, but not always the same. So, the set of transformation of one design is different from that of another. Many mathematicians have been studying this issue until finally in 1891, Evgraf Stepanovich Fedorov, a Russian mathematician, demonstrated that there exists exactly 70 possible wire pattern groups which can tile an Euclidean plane. Okay, that means that there are only 17 different ways to fill the plane with a periodic mosaic by means of a basic tile. 17, no more, no less, 17. All periodic designs correspond to one and only one of these 17 structures. They are called the 17 crystallographic plane groups. It turns out that the Alhambra is the single monument, the unique monument in the ancient world that having all the 70. This fact is even more surprising if we consider that Arabs of that age did not know the theorem of the 70 groups. The theorem was stated in 1891. They ignored if they were 17 or more or less because they didn't worry about the mathematical structure of their designs. They merely made patterns with decorative or aesthetic aims, and by chance, in the Alhambra, there are all that can possibly be made. Nowadays, there are other buildings containing the 70 groups at the Mosque of Casablanca in Morocco, but this has been done in a deliberate way, on purpose, by taking advantage of the current mathematical knowledge. Mathematicians have developed a method, an algorithm to classify any design of the 17 groups. It is represented in this diagram. As an example, we can classify the chessboard. Let us start from the left. What is the minimal rotation leaving invariant the chessboard? 90 degrees. So, okay, we will follow this branch. Does the chessboard admit any reflection? Yes, okay. In 4x's? Yes, okay. So our chessboard is a P4M group. Already classified. In this way, you can classify any periodic pattern. Color is usually very important in the classification. Look at this beautiful mosaic. By taking into account the color, it is a PMG group, but if we want to see black and white, then reflections in two different directions are possible, so it would be a PMM group. The history of the discovering of the 17 plane crystallographic groups in the Alhambra is full of anecdotes. The mathematician Hermann Weyl wrote a book, a classical book entitled Symmetry, in the 50s of the past century, 1952. In it, he stated with no proof that all the 17 groups are in the Alhambra. But to tell the truth, Weyl had made a rather superficial visit to the Alhambra. He counted many groups and he gave for granted the existence of all of them. It was assumed true until Braco Grunbaum, in a more detailed visit to the Alhambra, verified that there were only 12, originating a great commotion. It happens to be that Grunbaum did not visit the museum and did not see other groups that had disappeared from the palaces. This mosaic in particular, on your screen, was discovered by the worldwide famous mathematician Donald Coxeter. Coxeter increased the number of discovered groups from 12 to 13. In recent times, a group of mathematicians of the University of Granada did a rigorous study and discovered some more groups, up to 16. Then the search for the last group became a challenge. They dedicated days and days, weeks and weeks, months and months, examining all the corners in the Alhambra palaces and the museum until finally they discovered the last group. One of these mathematicians is with my own department of applied mathematics, Professor Rafael Pérez Gómez. Neither Grunbaum nor Coxeter were able to find it. It was very difficult to find because it is inside the ornaments in form of fruits here. These are the little triangles. It is a very simple design. Its structure corresponds to a P3M1 group. In the Alhambra, there are only two places, two rooms in which you can find this. Please let me not say where they are. I would like to propose to you the challenge of discovering this when you visit the Alhambra. For sure, you will enjoy your visit and you will have a good day. And I hope that the pleasure of visiting the palaces of the Alhambra will be enhanced by the knowledge of the mathematical context that you have seen today and you will see there. By means of mathematics, you will communicate with the creator of the monument. The mosaics of the Alhambra constitute today the best and most valuable collection of examples of the modern mathematical theory groups. Hence, they constitute an authentic cultural legacy with current scientific value. After 5 centuries, the mosaics of the Alhambra inspired artists like Gaudí, Escher, Robinson, Falla, Debussy to create part of their art. They are also serving so that students of mathematics of the whole world have the most beautiful examples of objects as abstract as the groups of surfaces, elements of algebra, or differential geometry that come to life. The walls of the Alhambra do speak to you as a great book about history, religion, sociology, science, and technology. A book that is written making use of poetry and geometry. Please listen to the walls, read the great book, and enjoy. That's all. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Martínez Aroza. It's simply amazing to know what is hidden inside the walls of the Alhambra. It's really amazing. I don't know if someone of the assistant want to pose a question to you.
I'd like to thank you very much for this fantastic visit. Luckily, I was in Alhambra, and you made me really think of many things and
remember many things.
Exactly, and go there and go back and deepen these aspects, and having this fascinating reading from a different perspective and a highly expert perspective.
Of course.
So thank you very much.
Very welcome. It's a pleasure. It's a true pleasure.
Okay, so if there are not specific questions, I think we could, well, we know that everybody is a bit trying to organize time, but if you, I hope you can stay for another bit, and so we could probably move to some reflection from this first part of the meeting. Maria del Carmen, do you agree? So this morning, as we saw, is focusing on culture on one way and psychology and the digital divide on the second. So we heard these two fantastic presentations, close and distant from our daily life, clearly, because visiting Alhambra could be close, unfortunately not so much, but from this perspective is definitely new. And again, visiting Leipzig, we hope will be possible quite soon, but with the guide of our speaker is definitely something unique, something which I feel like a privilege. So if you like, we could move to our rooms and try to share our ideas on some questions. Here I have some questions which I discussed a bit with our first speaker, and I think that Maria is also adding something with our second speaker. So, for instance, there is a question that is common, I think, to the two. I'm sorry. I should become more expert in finding my notes. So the first question is, what would be the wishes for senior students regarding visitor guidance? So this is a question which our first speaker posed, but I think it might be relevant for both the presentations. And then particularly focusing on the first talk, as our colleague was saying, reflecting on life and death, and more specifically reflecting on how with conservation and restoration we could work in a phoenix way. So with Phoenix Rising from Ashes via an extraordinary award project. How can we reflect universally, as our second speaker was saying, mathematics is really universal. But let's say, how could we reflect on an intergenerational and international level? And again, knowing the history of town and university, and again, knowing it from a very specific, expert, very exquisite, scholarly point of view, conservation, mathematics. How can this contribute to challenge the divide between generations and clearly national belonging, but we are speaking about generational, and help bridge links? So what could we add as a last question? And then we could move. So first of all, if you don't mind, I try to copy this in our chat. So we have them available. And let's see whether I'm able, because this is, okay. So if I put it in the chat and I put it for everybody, we have this, but I'm pretty sure that there might be another one focusing on the mathematics of this wonderful visit to Alhambra. What do you think?
I think that making a visit to the Alhambra has an impact, not only for the simple fact that you are visiting a very famous monument, but also through the visit of the Alhambra, you can be aware of the history of Granada, which is very complex. The history of the different cultures that have been living in Granada, and you can be aware of ¿cómo se dice? Convivencia, of how the people of different cultures and religions have been living together, coexistence, have been coexisting along the centuries. And also, when I make a visit to the Alhambra, normally there are a mixture of many ages, elder people, young people, and even school children. And I propose, I tell all the story, many other stories that I didn't tell you because the time today is very short. But I propose the challenge of discover the last group, and everybody, young people and not young people and school children are looking all the corners of the Alhambra. Surprisingly, the last group is usually discovered by the school children. I think the challenge of the discovering makes an interaction very strong among all the people, all the visitors. So I think that this is an example very beautiful of breaking the intergenerational barrier. You can say that is.
That's very nice. Mm-hmm. The capacity of discover things also, no? Mm-hmm. Alberta, the microphone, please. Oh.
Sorry, I was trying to put it down in words, but I don't know whether Prof. José Martínez Aroza agrees with me with my summary. Through this fantastic spatial mathematical visit at Alhambra, we can have a direct experience across ages and generations, thus helping to break intergenerational barriers. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you very much. So we have this input. We have these 4 inputs, but clearly we have other inputs that we can bring ourselves in our rooms. Now I thank our organizers who are inviting us in different rooms. And so we will stay there for how many minutes, Maria del Carmen? How long are we staying in the rooms?
I prepared for 15 minutes. If you want
to
take more or less, 15 minutes is okay?
It's okay.
Okay. When you want it, I begin in the rooms.
Okay.
Okay. I put it.
Okay. So we are waiting for a group, I think, because I don't see. No, I see Maria del Carmen. No, I think probably we are here. Okay.
Everybody's here.
Everybody's here. Wonderful. So can we share a bit what we have been discussing in our small groups? Can I ask somebody from group 1?
Anna, you speak? Anna?
Yes. My English is not very well, but I try.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We speak English well, don't worry.
We spoke mainly about Alhambra, we were very expressed from the art of mathematics to show us the mathematics, and we talk about that mathematics, symmetry and harmony is a part of our life, and it hurts when there is no symmetry, like in modern art or so on, but it's also okay. And we talk about that mathematics as in science, elderly, for older people, it's more complex, but for the children, the colors are very important and they see it with pleasure, I think. And yes, and we can go to Alhambra perhaps our whole life, and we can expect new things. And yes, and about a phoenix, the last comment was that old, to be old is not sickness. And yes, and it remains of our identity when we know that we can't live forever and we are mortally. And this shows this project, I think, very well.
Thank you very much. From group 2, Diego, would you like to try to summarize a bit? Not so much. So can I ask Esther to just pick up the two most, no? Okay, so it's upon me. I'm very sorry because Ronald said I already spoke yesterday. And Barbara said prefer not. Okay, well, we noticed we spoke about we tried to focus on the first question proposed by our first speaker. What do seniors expect from visiting art and spatial art sittings and events? And the idea was that seniors, and not only seniors, could really gain a lot by these visits, and particularly by these visits conducted with such a high expertise. So we thought that this is extremely important. And Esther pointed to the importance of having this kind of experiences fostered by our universities, possibly in the right timing, because we were sharing this experience of being on holiday on a Wednesday morning to go visiting wonderful places. And so Esther was saying, well, this should be really offered during the weekend, perhaps, during time in which many people could go, expecting to meet people of different age generation. And she was extremely expressive in saying, I would like to share this experience, this space, this knowledge, this experience with people of different age. I would feel it nourishing. I would feel it important. And so this was common to Alhambra and to the Epitaph project, to Leipzig. Then another aspect was how to link in a more explicit way this reflection on a cultural level with our concern in this short virtual mobility experience. So at this point, there was some concerning how to link one shot, highly and enriching experience with some interest. So again, as we yesterday we were saying, particularly with Graz, some experience are seminars, talks, conferences, visits. Some are seminar series. So in a seminar series, we have some kind of interest which has been constructed and on which we can conduct these cultural experiences, these cultural journeys. And then again, we were complaining that there was not a chance this time to meet in person, because both Ronald and Ada were saying, well, we can imagine that we are in person, but we are not in person. And these two presentations invited us to go to Leipzig. And to go.
Please do, please come.
Yeah, and so the idea is an invitation to go and to really see personally what has been presented.
Yes.
Something more? Esther, Diego, Ronald, Barbara, would you like to add something? Maybe not. Okay, so let's go to the third group. What happened in the third room?
Yes, we were me, Vitas, Francesca, and Pino. I don't know if someone of the participants wants to sum up. If not, I can do it, or I can add something if necessary. Does someone want to intervene? I don't want to steal the scene of the participants. Okay, I can sum up a bit. So first, Vitas was telling us that it's reflecting about the fact that discovering culture of our cities, our universities, in general, our heritage, it's a very good way, probably the best way to get senior students involved into the university, not just the university at like an academic level, but in the university life. Also, and we agreed on our topic how reflecting on life and death is common for every age and every nationality. So it's like a common field where everyone can meet and discuss. So it's a very useful way to build bridges. And in this sense, senior students and young students are a resource for each other. And for this, he thinks that like mixed universities where you can find senior students and young students together, it's better than maybe universities just for senior students. He prefer to have mixed universities. After that, Pino was also telling us that he thinks that the main contribute that senior students can give is to bring their own personal experience and they push to learn always more and in a better way possible to be ready to the challenge that the world will put on young people's shoulders. So there was this link with the last presentation, the Alhambra presentation, and the point to be always eager to discover something new and to don't stop never. I don't know if someone wants to add something.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it was, as usual, very lively and bright, bringing different perspectives. So I leave the floor to Maria Carmen. Or should we have a little break or should we go? Welcome again. I'm extremely pleased to introduce Erika Borella. So we are going to Padua, the University of Padua, and we invite you to reach us in Padua, possibly in presence quite soon. Erika Borella is professor of general psychology at the University of Padua. And as I mentioned briefly before, she is a prominent person in the studies of aging from a psychological, but also in a broader way, from a psychological point of view, but also in a broader way, particularly for her work in a master on aging and in the Italian Society for the Psychology of Aging. Today, last but not least, she will present us some reflection on the cognitive changes in aging and the digital divide. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Alberta, for the nice presentation and also for inviting me. I'm a bit worried to, let's say, shift from the beauty of the Alhambra to more, let's say, scientific, less colored, less geometrical topics. But so today I will talk about the cognitive changes in aging and also how we treat somehow the digital divide. I think that we are all aware that we are living this green revolution. So the population is living longer. We are getting older. This is a very good news because the alternative is not so nice. And let's say this green revolution has also led to a substantial change in the pyramid of the population. So let's say that over the course of the three generation, we have no more pyramid of the population. It has changed in terms of shape because of these so changes in terms of the life expectancy. As I was telling you, it's really a very good news, but at the same time, we are facing a challenge. So people is living longer, in average 20 years, and we have to try to find solution to make those older adults, those individuals, to live with a good quality of life, to still experience well-being. And so we have to promote what is called the active aging. Active aging, I mean, you have, I think, all known about this term. It's related to, say, also the World Health Community Organization. And the aim is to help all the individual to develop, because aging is also a constant development, okay, of our skills. It is not a synonym of decline. So develop and maintain our functional ability, okay? So the fact that we are still able to answer to the environmental requests, to what the outside world is asking us in order to get adapted, and so to experience the psychological well-being, or the well-being in a more broad sense of the term. Of course, this functional ability requires a lot of effort. I mean, we cannot expect or think that we can get older and stay healthy and stay cognitively mental active without doing anything. I mean, our development in the larger sense of the term, since we are a child, is a challenge. And we have to decide if we want to take this challenge, if we want to also go on developing our skills to live with a good quality of life and to experience also, as I was telling you, well-being. Because the alternative of the promotion of healthy aging for our society is living this green revolution as a tsunami in the worst sense of the term. Okay, so we have a mission. All the society, all the individual have a mission, also in terms of intergenerational exchanges, to promote people, senior people, but everyone to develop, to think to their, let's say, getting older with a project, okay, and always trying to be an actor, an active actor of our development, of our aging process. I would like just you to note that I'm using development as a synonym of aging, because for me, I mean, it is the same. As we born, we start our aging process, okay? But we are not still in the culture of accepting this term, okay? We prefer saying that aging starts when we are 60 or 65. It is not the case. My child, my son is 2 years old and is getting older. He has to prepare his development in the same way that, I mean, with some, of course, divergences as an individual of 50 or 60 years of age. And let's say one of the challenge in the promotion of the active aging is ageism. I mean, I think this is a core aspect that we have to treat if we want to promote healthy aging and an active also aging, or even in a more simple way, if we want to promote the well-being and the quality of life at any age. What is ageism? As you can see, it's a term that has been coined a long time, quite a long time ago, and it refers to all the stereotypes, the prejudice, the false beliefs, and the incorrect knowledge that we have with respect to people because of their age, okay? Simply because they are perceived externally, I mean, looking at the hair or at the skin or other, let's say, societal features, because they are identified as no more young. And I was telling you, all of these stereotypes are so inaccurate. Okay, they are not true, and they are also influencing, this is the worst part of the story, they're influencing the way older adults then behave, okay? Because as we grow with these stereotypes, as we grow with this phenomenon of the ageism, then it is also internalized by the individual, and which then is a barrier, because if we have a wrong expectation, beliefs concerning the way you will get older, or what is represented, or what is aging, then you will act consequently in an incorrect way. And here I would like also to show you data to really highlight the influence that ageism can have. Here you have two groups of participants, I mean, individual healthy with no particular health problem. And there are two groups. I mean, they were divided in two groups after some questions, a questionnaire. Okay, those who had positive beliefs concerning aging and negative beliefs concerning aging, negative and incorrect. I'm stressing this again. As you can see here, those who had negative beliefs concerning what encompasses the aging process were also the one that had a higher probability to develop dementia. Whereas those who had the positive beliefs, I mean, or a more accurate, let's say, scenario, or what is leading aging has a lower probability of developing dementia. And this is the power in the two, let's say, perspective of ageism. So it can really put us in a situation, in a way of acting, of thinking, of mastering the environment that can give us the idea of having no power, so of becoming passive. Whereas if we have a correct and also, I mean, a positive view of aging, then we can experience well-being and an active aging. And here it is another data, I mean, other results that are also very fascinating to me, that concern participants, individual, that because of, I mean, a genetic inheritance, could develop have a higher probability because of this gene to develop dementia. Okay, and here again, those participants were divided after the questionnaire on those who had positive and negative beliefs about aging. Here again, you can find that those who had the negative beliefs also were the ones that had a higher probability of developing dementia. Of course, compared to the healthy one, the probability was higher. Okay, and this again means that those individuals do not start having or changing their behavior to try to counteract the development or the expression of this gene, but not also those that had a higher, had this positive beliefs concerning aging, though the presence of the gene had a lower incidence, which was not different from the healthy participants that had this positive vision about aging. So this is just to give the idea of the importance of having correct beliefs about what our development through the life course could represent. And there are a series of stereotypes that are the false myths concerning aging. There are many that concern the mind, the body, the relationship, the skills, the mastery of the environment. I mentioned some of them here, and I would like to focus the attention on cognitive decline on the one hand, and also on the fact that it is not true. I will show you that getting older is incompatible with learning new information or doing or managing or facing new activity, among which there is also the technology. Also, those aspects are very strictly related to the stereotypes and this ageism. So let's try to say dispel one of these false myths. One is, as I was telling you, which is also the main aspect of this short presentation, relates to the cognitive decline. So everybody, I mean, if you do a survey and ask, do you think that when you get older, you will lose your mental skills? A lot of people, if not the majority, will answer positively. Yes, sure. With aging, we lose our memory, and because of the memory loss, we will develop a dementia. But before showing you some data, I would like just you to try to answer in your mind to some of the question, I mean, the statement, to judge some of the statement that I just put here. I will read them, and then you have to think in your mind if this happened to you very often, sometimes, or always. For instance, forgetting to do things. Does it happen to you very often, sometimes, always? to repeating to someone what you have just told them, or doing some routine thing twice by mistake. Okay, I think that you had the time to answer in your mind. And then the question is, do you think that these errors are more frequent during adulthood or in aging? So they are more frequent in young adults or in senior, in older adults. So the result is that there are any differences from the 18 to the 19. So people from this, in this lifespan perspective, do or report to do with a similar frequencies those type of memory failures. Okay, but I'm sure that some of you, the question, do you think that it is more frequent in young or in old, would have answered that it is something more typical of aging, of older adults, which is not the case. But this type of answer is related to an ageist attitude, which of course is not conscious, but is related to the stereotypes that the society is, let's say, consistently repeating, also from the media and so on. And it is important to fight against these stereotypes, because what we think, the knowledge we have on the way our mental processes function, the way that we can control, or we think we can control them, what is called the metacognition, is essential in our functioning, in our, also for the development and the maintenance of our mental skills. So this is a representation of what is a metacognition, thinking of thinking of thinking. Okay, if we are aware of the exact or the correct changes that our memory, our attention, the speed at which we do, we can treat information, then we also have a different perception of our efficiency. We believe and we can trust in a different way our potentiality that are still there. Because if we are talking no more of aging, but of development, development is strictly related with the idea, with the concept that we can change, we can modify our also cognitive skills. And so we can also control them. If I think that with aging, I'm losing my memory, of course, I am also losing the control and all the strategies that can be used to enhance or sustain my memory functioning. Okay, so there are those other aspects that are always part of this quite, let's say, difficult concept of metacognition, that are the motivational and emotional aspects. Okay, so the emotion that we are living, where we can succeed in a situation in which my mental abilities and my memory is concerned, and so I'm more motivated to do other activities that are challenging for my cognitive functions. Or the reverse, if I am living with the stereotypes I'm not aware of course, each time I will fail in a situation that is requiring my processes to work, of course I will get frustrated, and I will try to avoid all the situations that put my abilities in work, because I don't want to fail. And this is the end of the story. If I'm not using my mental abilities, then I will really lose them, and let's say develop then also a neurodegenerative process. Okay, so there is this aspect related to the emotion, to the knowledge I have, that can influence the way I'm using my memory, my attention, my reasoning ability. So all what is part of the so-called cognitive abilities. And getting back to cognitive changes, I would like to show you this this figure. Is quite a complex one. I will not enter into details, but just to show you that not all the mental abilities are subjected to a decline. Okay, so we can speak, it is really incorrect to say aging corresponds to cognitive decline. It is not true. There are, of course, some abilities that change, but also within, among the abilities that are changing, some have a quite important decline, but other is a less attenuated decline. And which is also most important to keep in mind is that there are other abilities that are following an opposite pattern. They are not decreasing, they are increasing while I'm getting older. Okay, and also another important thing is that, for instance, memory does not. It is not a unique system. There are different memory systems, and those memory systems react in a different way depending on what they have to do. So also it is incorrect to say that memory declines, because depending on the memory system, I can say that some of them are stable while I am developing, I'm getting older, while other effectively actually are changing. And here again, it's a bit, it's also quite complex, but try to follow me, not to look too much to the figure. It is this graph. It's a figure I really like because it is showing that despite the stereotypes of the ageism, there are more than 50% of our cognitive skills that even when we are very old, so for people over 75 and over 80, there are 50% of our cognitive abilities that are still very efficient. Okay. And as you can see here, there is a maintenance of many of different important cognitive or mental skills, which is then also explaining and supporting the idea that we can aging actively, we can perceive and go on developing also our mental skills. And so here an example of, let's say, the strength, the power of stereotypes. When I have to deal or navigate in the environment, still, for instance, I am in the Alhambra, and I mean, Alhambra, it's a bit complex. I am in Granada, and I have to, after a few days in which I had the opportunity to move in Granada, someone is asking me to draw a map of the town. I mean, not a very detailed one, but just to give an idea of how the town is. Okay, of course, I can have more difficulty if I am older, but as you can see, the fact that I am scared about the stereotype, I mean, the fact that I'm being older and all those changes can influence also my capacity of drawing a map of the town, not because I'm not able, but because always of those stereotypes. And as I was telling you, there is the other part of the story. So a series of ability, of competencies that develop while I get older. One of these is well-being, is happiness. Happiness, a positive emotion increases, the positive emotion increase with age. Okay, so adult people in their 20 are less happy than people in general. I'm talking, of course, that older people. Okay, and also negative emotion decrease with aging. So older people tend to, let's say, focus their attention to what is good in life, more than having a pessimistic idea of life. And this is thanks to experience that they have earned. And here also, again, there is this positive emotional experiences that increases. There is this also stability in the well-being. Those data are data from US, and those are data from Italy. Okay, so we can see that when we ask people, how do you feel? Then adults have a lower psychological well-being than older adults. And there is this age range which is a bit in difficulty, and I think you can imagine why people, when get retired, they have to face with a transition which is not easy to deal with. Okay. And these also pattern, these trends, let's say, of managing better the emotion was also found during the pandemic. So the negative emotion were less present in older adults than in young ones. Positive emotion were more present, more frequent in older adults than in younger adults. And those are still US data, but also in Italy, what we found was that younger adults had more difficulty during this period. They perceived a worse quality of life than older adults. They reported to be less able to get adapted to the situation. And they even said that there was a change in their mental resources, which was not present in old adults. So this is just to give you this multidimensionality of the aging process, which has, of course, some in which there are some changes depending then on the mental abilities we are treating. Okay, but there are also other aspects of our cognitive functioning, related to our cognitive functioning, that are really present, and I mean, they are also an advantage compared to what is happening while we are young adults. And here again, I mean, there are two examples of Michelangelo Buonarroti, and I mean, the same piece that was done at different ages. And I'm not sure that we can say that aging corresponds to cognitive decline. There are changes, of course, you can perceive also the changes, but I mean, there are three beautiful, amazing pieces of art, and that are showing that we can still, I mean, use our capacity that are adapted. I'm not entering to details, but you can perceive that there is a decrease in the details that Michelangelo put in these pieces, but they are the three very, very beautiful, at least in my opinion. So we have to fight against these stereotypes, because I mean, they are then putting or at work a vicious circle in which then we have dysfunctional belief. We then have a low sense of self-efficacy. We get demotivated. We do not want to change our routine, and this, of course, is then so. This is really representing a passive way of using our skills. We have also to build our own aging, and always to keep in mind that despite all the changes that are there while we are getting older, there are some ways of counteracting it. And this model, I really like it because it is called the scaffolding theory of aging. The scaffold means something that can sustain, counteract aging, and there are the new learning. So the fact that we also start a new activity. We learn a second language. We start university. We participate to conferences, as some of you are doing. So all those aspects are creating this scaffold and are counteracting and postpone, let's say, the negative effect of aging. So training our memory, our cognition is also a very good and powerful, if not the only one, strategy we have to, let's say, counteract aging, and so to fight against the stereotypes. And of course, all those aspects are related to our life course experience, which are also strictly related to the vision we have of what means getting older, of what means developing. Okay, and my talk, so the digital divide. So there is this gap between age groups with respect to their use of technology, and there have been changes. So there are some good news, but still the percentage of older adults that use them is could be increased, let's say. Okay, why it is important to promote the development or technological competencies and to fight against this digital divide in aging, in senior, because the European Council, for instance, identified the digital skills as one of the 8 key competencies for lifelong learning. Okay, so it is because it is related of acquiring knowledge, and if you remember, new learning is part of one of the strategies that is promoting active aging. Okay, so digital technology, all those words, let's say, is also a way to fit into this new social and work environment, which we all have also lived during the pandemic, that has really stressed out the importance of those aspects. Okay. And as I was telling you, there are still quite a lot of older adults that are not familiar with, and we will see which could be the psychological features that are related to those aspects. Okay, these I mean are the quite recent statistics concerning the digital society among older adults in Europe. As I was telling you, there are good news in the sense that there are more and more older adults or adult and older adults that are using computer, smartphone, and so on. But still, I mean, for the older or the oldest adult, there are nearly 50% of the population that is not familiar. Okay, and also the statistic depends then on the type of the device we are looking for. Okay, so let's say that sending, receiving emails is the more familiar activity concerning the use of internet, while the other are less developed, if we want to. And also the social networks, I mean, there are still, we have to work to train older adults to use social networks. The research in psychology is clearly showing that using social networks is helping older adults to fight against depression. And if we can fight against depression, we are also counteracting dementia, because depression and dementia are strictly related. So we have to really work to fight against this digital device. These are some data of Italy. I'm not entering to details, but as I was telling you, the percentage of people, so the fact that older adults are less used to is still there. And from a psychological point of view, how can we explain this digital divide? There are different factors. There are personal factor, technical, and environmental. Okay, and those three dimensions are then explaining other two key aspects that influence the way we use technology. It is the perceived usefulness and the perceived ease of use of the technology. These are really the core aspect that can explain this familiarity, this avoidance or not with respect to the technology. And with respect to the personal aspect, I will not enter into the details of the other two. I mean, here again, we find stereotypes, okay? So, of course, there could be some physical changes, I think, to arthritis. There could be for a part of the older adults, some cognitive changes, but the fact that older adults are convinced that they cannot learn that technology, that the iPhone, the older device, computer, and so on, are something of the younger generation, the younger cohort, and that they cannot learn how to use them is one of the main barriers. Okay. And also related to stereotypes, there is again what I was telling you, metacognition. So the self-efficacy, the fact that we are not we do not want to get frustrated, or we do not want our nephew to say, grandma, you are old, don't do that, okay? Because I mean, it is frustrating, and it is reiterating the stereotypes that we can have, okay? So the adults are basically afraid and unwilling to use technology because of these stereotypes, okay? And the fact that they believe that they cannot learn, they cannot use that because it is not part of their generation, okay? So we have to work on those stereotypes with our a leitmotif of this short talk I'm giving, just also to go ahead and make older generation, also the senior one, to use our technology, okay, and to convince older adults that they can. Of course, we have to think and to structure training to make this digital literacy also in older adults, but training that is not to deal only with technical aspects, but also on those mental expectation, mental barriers that can characterize older adults. And here there is a nice recent paper I found, and it is clear that tablet computer use behavior is explained mainly by always the stereotypes, the fact that if you are scared, if you think that you cannot do this, if you are convinced, then you get anxious, and then you can understand why you have to use it, and so on. And so then, of course, you are not using or trying to understand, to learn how you can use this type of technology. Okay, so really, I think that it is important first to ask older professional and also to work on those aspects. And in this sense, also intergenerational exchanges are important, because children do not have those strong stereotypes, and they can help older adults managing, let's say, the technical problem without making older adults feel inadequate or older. So I would like, I don't know if I was too long, Alberta.
No, benissimo, perfect. So to be discussed, what would you like to be discussed?
So I would like in the groups, people, then I don't know how to do this, if I have to put in the chat, to do this. It's a quiz. Okay. So, and then discuss on their answer. I mean, it's a quiz, very short. I found in the World Health Organization, and then there are also the correct answer. Okay, this was one aspect, and then the other main question that could be discussed is which feature should have the learning environment for a senior. Okay, not just the digital one, but in general. So, okay. I don't know if those questions are clear.
Could you copy this question
sure.
In the chat? Thank you very much. Yeah. So for sure, it's quite interesting to see which kind of elements should have the learning environment to help in overcoming this barrier, and so in helping building bridges. First of all, as you say, helping to age in the best possible way. So, and coming with it also helping to bridge possible intergenerational aspects. Okay, so thank you very much.
There is a question.
Sì, vorrei fare un paio di domande, se è possibile.
Sure.
Scusate, le faccio in italiano perché sennò è un disastro per me.
Okay, so Pino is suggesting, sorry, le traduco. Pino is suggesting to put a couple of questions. He will say in Italian and we will translate. Thank you very much. Prego.
Grazie. Allora, una domanda è questa. Questi interventi di cui ho visto i materiali esposti, è possibile poi dopo in qualche modo scaricarli, al di là del fatto che c'è una registrazione, perché sono tantissime cose, sono molto interessanti e mi piacerebbe poter avere le dispense che sono state mostrate diciamo durante questa Summer School. Se questo è diciamo possibile, puoi accedere a questo materiale. E poi invece, tornando all'argomento di cui parlava la professoressa Borella, sul fatto che il pensiero che uno ha delle proprie capacità di pensiero influiscono poi sullo stato diciamo di benessere complessivo e anche a livello cognitivo, delle capacità cognitive che possono essere espresse da una persona. Questo vuol dire che un pensiero positivo riesce a incidere, mi pare, sensibilmente, perché ho visto proprio delle percentuali differenti in quei grafici con le barre, che indicavano proprio che il pensiero positivo permette di avere una capacità di diciamo di adattamento all'ambiente maggiore di quanto non ce l'abbia un pensiero negativo, per cui se una persona non si percepisce in grado di poter stare al passo con quello che lo circonda, diciamo avrà delle grosse difficoltà nel riuscire poi a interagire in un ambiente che avverte come distante. Vedevo che poi si parlava di demenza addirittura, cioè la demenza, se ho capito bene, è influenzata anche da questo pensiero. Ho capito bene? Cioè...
Okay, so there are two questions. The first question is an organizational question, and I saw Maria del Carmen already nodding. And the question was whether it will be possible to have access to all the material. This is recorded, this meeting and the previous one have been recorded, but also the PowerPoints and other aspects. And Maria del Carmen is nodding. Yes, all the PowerPoints will be available, already are yesterday's, and now that we will upload today's. And so we ask also our colleague Rudolf and the other speaker and Erika if you can send your PowerPoint in order to be uploaded. And the second question regards the talk by Prof. Borella, and says, well, given this strong, this robust evidence showing that what we expect to be have an effect, showing the self-fulfilling prophecies of the ageism, how far it goes, because it goes to cognitive competence, it goes to adattamento, fitting to the context, but also it goes to dimension. So there was this question, is it really the case? Erika, prego. There is some,
so in the sense that, just a premise, I will not talk about positive thinking. It is a realistic thinking. So the fact that we know in an accurate way that aging is not a decline, because it is not decline, but it is another stage of our life in which we should be active. We should be actor, okay? So that all depends on us. It is not God, it is not, it depends on us. And if, in contrast, I'm a passive, I'm avoiding social situations, I'm avoiding all the situation that requires my memory, then I create an environment that is poor of stimuli. And the stimuli, the enriched environment, but not for money, the enriched in terms of stimuli of what I can do, is what is giving food to my brain. And if I'm giving food, doing a lot of things, trying to do also new things that can put me away from the routine, okay? This is stimulating my brain, and which will postpone dementia. If you will stay, but also the youngest people here, 3 months on the sofa looking at the TV without doing anything else, you probably will get a quite important cognitive decline. Okay, now you are young. If you put then this situation to aging, when there are changes, okay, we can counteract them. But if we are not counteracting them, then there will be some degenerative processes, because our brain is not working anymore, and this is related to dementia. And this is what is explaining the data you were talking. So if I have this predisposition of developing dementia, and I am spending my day at home alone watching TV, then of course the disease will occur before, because I'm not fighting, I'm not doing anything to counteract it. Okay, this is what I meant. So I'm sorry, I didn't want to say that it is not important to think positively, but it's something more. Okay, it's not saying that aging is good, but it's saying it depends on me. Okay, if I'm doing, I will stay active. If I'm fighting stereotypes, I will live better. But if I am expecting others or something else happening, which is not concerning me first, then I mean, the aging in terms of development, I'm not sure that will be feasible. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
If I answered to your question.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I understand.
There is a question by Christine. If I can, this is also very close to what we discussed yesterday. And we said with Diego, it depends with me in relation with other, co-constructing a view. So helping to fight the ageism narrative. Christina, please, your turn.
Yes, I want to add something in my eyes very important. This is the factor of education. I was co-author of a study of the life situation of women 60 plus in Austria, And this was, there was also a chapter about the new technology. And what we find out was that Austrian statistics show that the digital gap is very small within higher educated persons and not depending on age. That's the education is a factor that makes a difference, because many elderly people can use the new technology as well as the younger ones if they are educated well enough. And in all other situations, also the education is the education influences the income situation, influences the healthiness of the people, and it seems that education is the key for all.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree totally with you. I did not want to enter into the details of digital literacy, but it's for sure education. The level of education is a critical variable. You are completely right. I agree with you. But I could not say all, otherwise.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Anna, please.
I will warning for the thought of some persons who are demens. Think of actors, they learn the whole life and they are also demens. We must be very, very vorsichtig to bring the thought to the persons who are demens, because they learn, they work and so on, and they will be ill. And that's not their responsibility.
If I can add, recent studies are showing that also in dementia we can learn.
Yes.
Okay. The more we present an environment that is stimulating, the more we are decreasing the progression of the disease. Okay?
Yes, that's correct.
But if we think that a person with dementia is without the mind, dementia without the mind, then if we behave thinking that this is the situation, we are then presenting an environment which is preventing these people with dementia to do anything. Okay, now don't do that, I will do it for you. Don't do that, I will do this for you. Okay, and the more we act in this way, the more we create then a situation in which our brain has no stimuli. Okay, and the disease progress more in a more accelerated way. Okay,
I agree, but we have to be very carefully to persons who have dementia without their fault.
Yes, sure. And most importantly, we do not have to think that dementia is just a neurological disease. Okay, not say dementia disease. There is a person. We have to look at the person. Then this person has dementia, but we do not have to forget that there is a person who is experiences a lot of changes.
Matilde, prego.
I was wondering if, in the way that we were living our lives when we were young, for example, heavy smokers or heavy drinkers, what is there are some impacts on the way our brain will function in older age, because what I can see sometimes is people don't function well because the oxygen doesn't come to the brain because of the heavy smoking, the habit that they have. So that is one different angle maybe to see things, okay? So the cycle of life goes like that, but how we live the cycle of our own life and taking our responsibility for our health.
Sure, I agree with you. I mean, there are those factors that can accelerate, but those factors, and this is why I'm talking always about development and not aging. We have, I mean, it is difficult to say that for really a strong smoker at 70, say, stop smoking because you will develop a dementia. It will be very difficult because for 50 years this person has smoked. But if we start earlier, so when the person is in their 20s, then the lifestyle can change. Okay, so it is really a continuous process. We should eat well, not smoke.
Walk a lot.
Not to work too much because it's also a not healthy behavior. To do sports,
exactly.
Drink not so much, but we can drink. I mean, wine is also good. There's some positive effects, but of course, all what is exceeding is not good for health. But let's say that depending on our lifestyle when we are young, then we will have also, from an health point of view, a certain type of aging. But it's really difficult to say for an individual who has never done sport at 80, say, go to the gym. I mean, he will never go to the gym because it is not in the lifestyle experiences. Okay, so we have to promote also this culture to make prevention in this sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, yeah, I think that we are in a nice group now here, and perhaps time is also getting short, so we could remain here. Perhaps I was not able to write down your question, Erika. I tried to fit your question with this. So how could, yeah, can you? Yeah.
I wrote where
you wrote it. Okay.
I have a small problem with the quiz because the two addresses.
Okay. So let's leave Erika some few words for closing, and then we move to Maria del Carmen. Yeah. So. So you were saying maintaining, but also preventing. You spoke a lot about prevention and construction of guides, strategies, and a culture of guides and strategies. You are saying beginning, I like what you said. Also, my son is older than 2 years ago. So beginning from the early beginning. So not waiting for late age to move it, but because you spoke a lot about cognitive competencies, but also more because you spoke about metacognitive, you spoke about motivational, you spoke about different kind of competencies. And basically you also gave quite a few hints and ideas on how to facilitate them, enhance them, facilitate them. Okay, so thank you again. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you to the previous speaker. So Maria del Carmen wants to greet us and speak about the next steps, let's say.
So I only want to thank everyone for your participation, for your nice presentations. I think it's very interesting what we have talked about, the idea of face the age in a positive and active way, and to be to try to promote the inclusion and the intergenerational relationships get stronger. And the universities has a very strong role in this. So I'm very happy of the results of this short summer virtual course. Hopefully we could, sooner than later, we could make in a present way the following steps. I hope we keep in touch for our next activities. Thank you very much. If Berta wants to say something more.
Thank you. I just thank you, everybody, particularly the speaker, but particularly the audience, and everybody has been quite active, and we appreciate it a lot. We know about some senior students who have not been able to be part of this meeting, but who told Francesca, Esther, and Gaia that they would have liked to participate, so they were interested in the material. So thank you, Pino, for reminding us to make all the material available. And they also were quite willing to say something, to be in touch with some eventual answer to our questions. So already here, it's a goodbye and not a farewell. And now there is a summer, and so probably we will not meet very soon, but we will meet quite soon. So I wish you a wonderful summer. We're already entering it, and thank again with this wish to meet again with further steps. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you to everyone.
Bye, everybody.